November 14th. I'm Rim.
And I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we review an old classic, Dig Dug, for the Atari 7800.
Let's do this. So I'm actually doing work, finding a new job.
Oh, really?
It's kind of weird because every time previously I've ever looked for a new job, it's always been like, oh man, I need a job. I don't have one right now. But now I'm looking for a job. Well, I've got a job. So I'm just like, ha 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 ha. You better offer me something good or I'm not leaving. I'm fine where I am.
See, I'm doing something different for the first time, too. Instead of looking for a new job right now, I'm looking more to see if I can get a gigantic raise or a promotion at my current job.
I've never actually, tried to climb the corporate ladder in any way.
Well, I just want more money. I don't care about the corporate ladder. I want more money, and I'm overqualified for my position.
Yeah. I applied for actually a bunch of jobs. Just one of them I happened to interview for today on the phone. But I applied for some managerial position, which actually would be pretty cool if I had that. Because, imagine a job where all I do is talk to people and do papers. It'd be so easy.
Nah, because I've done stuff like that, and it's kind of easy, but at the same time, you're managing people because usually those people don't know what to do on their own.
Yeah, but I imagine if I'm managing programmers, we speak the same language, so I could definitely get them to do what I want.
We'll see. We'll see.
I only applied for it. I sent someone a resume. It's basically nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm just pointing that out that I did that. But yeah, the guy on the phone, he didn't really ask me the tough technical questions that have been asked in the past. And I'm sort of afraid with the job I interviewed for because it's like writing Linux kernel modules, which I haven't done, but I believe I am capable of learning.
Well, you're going to buy that book.
Yeah, I decided it's real. I looked at the book in the borders, and it's actually writing Linux kernel modules isn't as tricky as I thought it was, but it's still tricky. And I'm actually real interested. I'm probably going to do it whether I get a job doing it or not. So... yeah.
Maybe we could write some drivers for these Sony recordy bits.
Not without documentation.
Do some reverse engineering.
Yes, that's the one thing. I could probably write a driver for a piece of hardware if I had the documentation for it. But without documentation, I got nothing. I'm basically hopeless.
Nah. Yeah, so we only have one news, really. But that news has far-reaching ramifications. For if you're not aware, which means, you're living under a rock, maybe you're blind and deaf, I don't know. Maybe you've never heard of this internet thing, but the PS3, the PlayStation 3, was released in Japan.
3 days ago.
And there's a lot of news about this.
Yeah, and it's coming out in the U.S. 3 days from today. Well, tonight. And the Wii comes out 5 days from tonight. And since next week, I'm going to get the Wii on launch at the Nintendo store. So next week, all we're going to be able to talk about is Wii. It's going to be Wii. So
it's going to be weak.
Right now, we're going to cover all things PS3 to get it out of the way so we don't have to talk about it next week.
Well, also, there's so much.
There is so much. It's going to take up the whole news.
Remember way back when, the Jack Thompson rule? I won't talk about Jack Thompson or Sony unless they top themselves.
Well, this isn't really a Sony story. It's a PlayStation story. It's like if I had a story about a specific, like the Ford Taurus, it's not a Ford story.
See, no, I would say this is a Sony story because Sony is pretty much...
Well, maybe parts of it are Sony stories and parts of it are PlayStation stories.
Sony is pretty much putting their whole bank on the PS3 and Blu-ray. If the PS3 doesn't do well, Sony's in deep... It's not going to do so well.
Sony's already, whatever.
What?
It's not... What? What do you mean, what?
What do you mean? What do you mean, whatever?
Well, they're already not in, huge financial gains compared to what they were in the Walkman
Actually,
days.
From that, not only are they not gains, but they've been doing very poorly across the board.
And even so, PlayStation isn't, a large portion of their business. Most of their business is still selling TVs and shit.
Actually, they put more money into the PlayStation 3 than they've put into pretty much anything.
Yeah.
The PlayStation 3 and Blu-ray are the future flagships of Sony, and we'll see what happens with that.
I don't think Sony's going to be going, out of business or anything like that anytime soon.
I think Sony's going to be in a lot of trouble in the next couple of years. I think there's going to be some layoffs.
I don't think so.
But anyway, to start off, they only sold 88,400 PS3s over the course of 2 days.
But how many did they release? 100,000, I think?
Well, they said they released 100,000, but I haven't seen anything that directly confirms this that I would trust. But from what all I've read, a lot of the news sites are reporting that almost all of the PS3s sold out, which would lead me to believe that not all of them sold.
It's a tough call, because if not all of them sold, then either they didn't ship the 100,000 they said and they did all sell, or why are people buying these things at such high prices in stores if not all of them sold?
Well, it could be that some of them just haven't been registered as sold yet. It could be that the people who don't have one now are bidding on those auction sites because even though there's a few left, they know they can't get one anyway. Or maybe Sony didn't actually ship 100,000.
Could be. Whichever the answer is, I have no idea. But the numbers that are reported by websites say that 100,000 were supposed to be shipped, and like in 2 days, 88,000 sold. You would expect, any console would sell all 100,000 in the first day. But it's Japan. Who knows? Craziness.
Well, more importantly, I think this is the big news. 88,400 PS3s were sold. How many PS3 games were sold?
I don't know. But there weren't that great launch games. I mean, what they have? Ridge Racer 7. There was a Gundam game, which actually looked pretty cool. And I don't know any of the other games, really. They didn't, at least none were well-known or cool.
Well, the answer is that 62,001... Oh, no, I'm looking at the wrong number. Never mind. You know what? Just under 80,000 games were sold. The PS3 sold less games than PS3s. More people bought PS3s than bought PS3 games.
Well, what this tells me is a couple things. Number one, someone's buying this thing just as a Blu-ray player, which, if you're after a Blu-ray player, is not such a bad idea because a Blu-ray player costs more money than a PS3. Number two, it's a computer. You can install Linux on this thing and use it as a computer.
No one bought a PS3 for that purpose now.
So I think someone, at least one guy, bought it to use as a computer.
I doubt it, especially in Japan.
Well, yeah, but I mean, for the power of the PlayStation 3,
power that you really can't access so readily.
You can install Linux on it, you're just fine.
No, because the cell processor is not that standard or well understood by most people, and anyone trying to use the PS3 as a computer is going to run into a lot of problems.
Yeah, but think about it. The Linux hacker in Japan has got it already, so he can, compile all these open source programs for Cell and start shipping them out.
Yeah, whatever. I don't see that being a factor at all.
That's not many people, but there's at least one guy.
I don't think it's even any. I don't think anyone who has the money and the care to buy a PS3 cares about Linux.
I think that I don't think it's people that care about the PS3 care about Linux. I think it's people care about Linux now care about the PS3 because it runs Linux.
Well, I would furthermore say that anyone who does that, it's not a useful endeavor. The PS3 is not going to be a useful computer. Computers themselves are going to far outpace the PS3 in short order anyway.
But it does it really depends on how useful as a computer it will be because, first of all, getting a Blu-ray drive in your computer is very expensive, more expensive than buying a PS3.
Well, that is true.
And someone might want a Blu-ray drive in a computer. And two...
Well, wait. Someone might want a Blu-ray drive. There's such a small market for Blu-ray or HD DVD at all in the first place.
Yeah, but also the PlayStation 3 has really good TV outputs. So, like how we have the Mac plugged into the TV, and there's an obvious difference between plugging it into the computer screen. If you have a PlayStation 3 with an HD cable plugged into your HD TV, that's a pretty good computer with TV output right there.
But you'd get a similar, or if not better thing, by plugging a regular computer into a regular computer monitor.
Yeah, but what if you want to get a computer that plugs into a TV?
You know what? If you just, what are you going to use it for? I mean, if you're using it as a computer, you're better off using a monitor. If you're using it to watch stuff, most stuff you watch from the internet is not HD anyway, and it'll look just fine on a normal TV with a normal RCA connection.
I'm just saying that,
I know, I'm just saying that I don't think anyone who is smart enough to think it through would buy the PS3 as a computer.
Anyway, the final reason that they've sold less games than PS3s is obviously because a lot of people bought PS3s just to sell on eBay, and that means you don't buy any games.
There are somewhat dubious reports that one gentleman, through a small network of homeless people, purchased about 100 PS3s.
I don't know how much I believe that story, but it could be.
Going to resell all of them. But the news, and this has been reported in several places, is that the majority of the PS3s, according to shop owners, were purchased by homeless people and Chinese nationals.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them look like they were being purchased by these people for the express purpose of being shunted through some sort of gray market and resold at a profit. Someone was going around rounding up bums and paying them to buy PS3s.
So we're going to go on Sunday. We're going to round up bums and get them to buy Wiis. And we're going to sell them all on a gray market somewhere.
Why don't we just do that with a PS3?
Because it takes a lot more money to get it started up. I mean, we need the money to buy enough PS3s.
Even if we bought one PS3 and sold it, that's enough.
But then we wouldn't need a bum to do it, would we?
Yes, we would, because I don't want to sit in line for 2 days.
I
Pay a
guess.
bum, 2 bottles of MD 2020 and $5 to buy a 3rd bottle of MD 2020 at a later date.
But how do you know he just won't take your PlayStation 3 money and then buy a crate of MD 2020?
Well, it depends. If you find a stupid bum, you stick a collar on his arm and tell him it'll explode if he doesn't come back. Or you simply say, I will find you and kill you. I have people watching you. I will be in that window.
If we had people? Okay.
No, you
He'd
just
have to
lie.
be a really stupid bum.
You know what? If he's a hobo, he's probably not that bright to begin with. But regardless of all that, at least the PS3 is out, and people are starting to use them, though I have seen almost no reviews of actual usage of the PS3. All anyone talks about is either that they got one or that they tried to get one, but no one's talking about the game.
I've seen some talk about comparisons between Ridge Racer 7 on the PS3 and Ridge Racer 6 on the 360. And basically what they're talking about is graphics, which I don't give a shit about. But they're showing these pictures of what the same track with the same car looks like on both systems. And in some ways, the PS3 looks a lot better. Like, it's brighter and shinier and looks like higher resolution. I don't think the resolution's actually higher. I think it's both 720p, but whatever. But in other ways, the PlayStation 3's graphics aren't as good. Like, this models missing, that are in the 360, and there's different details on different things. So it's tough to objectively say which one is graphically superior playing this almost the same game. But a lot of people are like, oh, man, the PS3 sucks. It doesn't look as good as the 360. And other people are like, oh, man, the 360 looks just fine. The PS3, whatever. But
Yeah. The one problem that a lot of people have reported is that the backward compatibility with PS2 games isn't working so well.
That's a toughie because, there's not too many PS3 games out right now. So someone who buys this to play games, they're probably going to be looking to play downloaded games. And I don't think the download network is working yet, is it? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, and they're going to want to play some PS2 games on it. And what do they say? Almost 200 PS2 games don't work?
According to CNET Japan, currently 196 PS2 titles have been reported as to not play at all.
Are people just, it's like 100 people trying to play games and calling them in? Or did someone sit there with every PS2 game trying to play them one by one?
I see a lot of reports, and I think it's people calling in.
Wow.
Because no one bought games for the PS3, so what are they going to use it for?
To play old Gran Turismo and
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah, when you could buy a
and Soul Calibur
$130
3
slim PS2
and Final Fantasy 12.
to do all that.
Yeah, you could. The slim PS2 is pretty hot. It's just $130, and for that money, I could get a DS Lite.
I'd buy a slim PS2 if the Wii weren't coming out right now.
Yeah.
Because I got some gaming itches.
It's weird. The DS Lite costs the same as the PS2, and the PSP costs the same as the Wii. It's kind of
Yeah.
crazy.
And also, down at Gizmodo, they showed a picture about how the PS3 that they just took out of the box was almost immediately and easily scratched to hell.
All right. First of all, I want to say I'm tired of the people complaining, like, oh, my God.
Oh, you mean all the Mac users? Like,
Yeah.
there's a tiny scratch on the back of my iPod after I dropped it on the cement.
Exactly. It's like, hello, it's a piece of electronic equipment. A scratch does not modify its functionality. Who gives a shit? People aren't going to look at, it's not like you have a big wart on your forehead or something nasty that's going to make people go, oh, you're a terrible person.
Well, to me, the issue is simply that a lot of companies now, especially Sony lately, and Apple has been doing this to a degree too, they'll make something that looks really, really shiny and awesome. Like, it looks super, super awesome. But as a result, it's made so that if you look at it wrong, it scratches up real quick and suddenly looks like shit.
Mhm.
Why not just make it durable, like, I don't know,
Nintendo products.
Nintendo products or even earlier Sony products?
Yeah, freaking PlayStation 1 was freaking, that thing could take a beating. God
My
damn.
PlayStation, well, my PS1.
Sega Genesis controllers, holy shit, those things kick around.
We're still using them.
We are. Yeah, but on the other hand, I don't really care if shit gets scratched. But on the other hand, it's like fine china.
How many hands do you have?
I got a lot of hands. But fine china, right? You go to the store, you buy really expensive china, right? If you use the china properly, if you wash it by hand in the sink and you eat dinner off of it, and, it'll be fine. It won't get scratched. It'll be all good. It only will scratch up if you drop it and break it. China's a very fragile thing, but in normal use, it will hold up as long as you, don't try to put it in the dishwasher or freaking use like a Brillo pad on it or anything stupid like that. If you make a product, in any category that is not some disposable product, and it gets marked up in normal use, that is a problem. If it's damaged in any way in normal everyday use, that is not good, no matter what the product is. If your car, the paint job gets scratched driving around, if, I don't know, the upholstery on your chair in your living room gets all roughed up just sitting in it, that's not good. That's a problem. Even if I don't personally think it's a big deal if an iPod or a PS3 has scratches on it, like I wouldn't give a shit at all, as long as it, doesn't hinder the use of the object. But at the same time, to have something that gets screwed up, but just using it normally is not cool. Not cool.
Yeah. Well, I know that your iPod is pretty scratched to hell.
It is pretty scratched to hell, but it works just fine. What do I care? It's cool.
Yeah,
I can still see the screen just fine. You don't even notice the scratches unless looking at it like, oh my God, it's scratched up.
Though, back on the home front here in the U.S., GameStop had they weren't entirely sure how many PS3s they were going to get, and they wanted to be cautious. So they only offered a very limited number of pre-orders at their stores.
Yeah, what did they say? 400,000 PS3s are coming to the U.S. in 3 days on the 17th?
I don't know if that's going to happen now.
I don't know. Well, we don't even know if 100,000 that they said were going to come out in Japan did.
I've seen people saying only 200,000 for the American release.
Well, we'll find out in 3 days, but either way, they say 400,000 in the U.S. So GameStop, went by those numbers and kind of estimated how many PS3s
Well,
per
it wasn't
store.
even that. GameStop went beyond that and did a very limited one, and they put out fewer pre-orders than they even expected in a bad case scenario for PlayStation 3s.
Yeah, I was hearing that they gave an average 9 PS3s per store. Of course, stores in the middle of nowhere got maybe 2 PS3s or even 1, and stores in a big city would get 20, 30, maybe even 50.
It turns out that wasn't enough. There won't be enough PS3s to even fill those limited pre-orders, and GameStop is now calling their customers and telling them, we know you gave us $100, but we can't give you a PS3.
At least not right away. If you have a pre-order, you're probably going to get one when they get one for you.
You know what you get? You know what you get if you get dicked over by this?
Mm-hmm.
A free used game or DVD valued at under $19.99 when you eventually wind up purchasing the system.
Oh, so you can't even get it to play in the time while you're waiting to get the PS3?
No, you gotta wait till you actually buy the PS3.
You'd think they'd give you a nice used PS2 game to keep you from going crazy while you're waiting.
No, because if that happened to me, I wouldn't go back to that GameStop to buy a PS3. I'd be so angry that I would just freak out and make sure that I never went to that store again. Anyway.
Well, they don't. When they get the pre-order, they don't promise that you'll get one at launch. They say this is not a promise.
You know what? That's horseshit.
I know. That's why when I went to the
It's like that
Nintendo
episode
store,
of
I said, does this
Seinfeld.
guarantee me a unit at launch? And they said, yes, it does.
It's like that episode of Seinfeld where he goes, he has a reservation for a rental car, and he goes, and they're like, sorry, we don't have any cars. But I have a reservation. Yeah, but we gave away all the cars. And he went on this whole bit about, so doesn't that make the reservation kind of useless?
Yeah. Well, it's what it is they have the legalese on there, and if you want to buy a pre-order, they tell you it's not a guarantee. If you buy it anyway, you knew.
Yeah, and you know what? I hate to say it, but I wouldn't. I would never pre-order something that wasn't...
I would never pre-order if it wasn't a guarantee either, and that's why I ask. I say, does this guarantee me something at launch? And if they say, no, it is not a guarantee, I say, I'm not buying it, because I'm basically buying nothing.
At least it was really easy to get a Wii pre-order.
It was. I went to the Nintendo store right as soon as, people were talking about Wiis. I said, can I have a Wii pre-order? They said, yes. I said, does it guarantee me a unit? They said, yes. And I'm pretty sure if I go to the Nintendo store on Sunday, I'm going to take the first train in the morning, I'm going to get a Wii.
Yep, I got to figure out.
99.9%
I got to figure out if my first Wii experience is going to be with Scott here in the Geek House or with the other Scott in the Pennsylvania Geek House.
Don't care either way. Either way, I'm going to be weeing it up on Sunday and cleaning the bathroom on Saturday.
When I was playing Dragon Quest VIII, I almost forced myself to go further because at the very end I had the secret thing, and I beat all the secret things except one where you have to fight the 7 previous bosses all at once with no rest in between. And I looked it up on the internet, and it's like, yeah, your prize for this is nothing. And it's like, oh, you're going right back on the shelf.
Well, that makes sense.
Goodbye. And they're like, oh, you simply have to level up to 65. 38. Just find some Metal King slimes. No problem. Yeah. You better find them on my bookshelf. That's the only place this game is going to be for the next 6 years.
Well, also... Dave and Joel's Fast Karate for the Gentleman.
The anime podcast for people who don't like anime.
Or podcasts.
Find us online at www.daveandjoel.com.
So enough PS3. It's time for Things of the Day.
Holy crap, what's your thing of the day?
All
I
right.
know what your thing of the day is because someone sent us the link and it was hilarious.
Yes, well, some of it was hilarious.
Yeah.
You see, we all like Phoenix Wright, but I am now also a fan of Phoenix Wrong. You see,
Oh, that's so creative. I never would have thought of that name for a
never
Phoenix
in a
Wright
million
parody.
years.
Oh.
God. But yeah, it's a bunch of little... Now, the thing is, these are a lot like Photoshop Fridays on Something Awful, in that it'll be the same kind of jokes over and over and over. And all the jokes are basically animations from Phoenix Wright with funny audio put over them. And these are done by some different people with varying levels of skill and funniness. And at least 60% of them are absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like one guy started the trend of making Phoenix Wrong videos, and then a bunch of other people sort of followed suit, and some of them did a better job than the original guy, and some of them did a worse job than the original guy.
Yeah, like the last two on the site were pretty piss poor.
They were just fan crap. Total fan crap.
But the one recurring theme that just really got me was there's this one thing Von Karma, a guy near the end, does where he bangs his fist on the ground and starts yelling. And almost everyone used that and played some sort of air raid siren or nuclear bomb exploding, and it was always hilarious.
Yeah, it was.
These are worth watching.
Yeah. So, my thing of the day is a random webcomic I found today. It's actually one specific
Comic?
Yeah.
In the webcomic?
I was trying to say issue or episode, and I was like, no, it's not an issue. It's not an episode. What are you talking about?
It's a comic.
It is.
Sequential art.
Yep. One specific comic of this webcomic was particularly hilarious. It had a nice Zelda 2 joke, and I was laughing for about 4 minutes, so I made it my thing of the day. Now, the comic is Digital Unrest by Chris Simmons at digitalunrestcomic.com.
Have you
And
ever
it updates every Monday with video game jokes in the style of Penny Arcade.
Have you ever actually read this comic?
Nope, but I read this single comic of Digital Unrest.
You'd better watch out. What if the rest of the comic isn't up to snuff for that one?
All right, you ready? You ready? I'm going to go and read one other Digital
One
Unrest.
other one? All right.
All right, here we go. You ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, let's see. Hold on.
Having some trouble? Just navigate the archive. It can't be that hard.
The site's poorly designed. Oh, here we go. I got one. All right, I read a few comics of Digital Unrest, and most of them are just sort of crude video game-related jokes that aren't too funny. But there were 2 or 3 gems that I discovered in my cursory glance at the archives. And the comic's about a year old, so I wouldn't recommend subscribing to this comic because I'm pretty picky about what webcomics I subscribe to. But the one that I link to is hilarious, so go for it.
It's pretty funny, mostly just because of the joke it makes, not so much because of the way the joke was executed.
Yeah, I
to
mean,
be honest.
The problem is that if you look at the third panel before you read the first panel, the joke is already spoiled. They really should have made it one of those scroll down instead of a horizontal one. Or they should have made the third panel less blaring.
Well, it's the same kind of joke as that Final Fantasy IV comic that we laughed about a while ago.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
someone kills themselves in a heroic fashion.
Yeah, it is the same kind of comic. But whatever.
Well, same kind
it
of
made me
joke.
laugh today, so I'll give it a link.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the same way. It's really hard for me to find a webcomic I like, and I've maybe read 2 webcomics more than I used to read in the last several years.
Well, I dropped webcomics because either they sucked and I just was reading them by habit, or they stopped making new comics.
It takes a lot.
It takes
for me
a lot
to
for me to
drop.
pick one up. Like Dr. McNinja, I picked up in Order of the Stick. That's about it. And I
Yeah.
picked up those a long time ago already.
Yeah. So with all this, new age console stuff that really doesn't matter at all, we figured it'd be time to review a much more important and much more fun game than a lot of things that have come out recently.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows classic games like Pac-Man, Space Invaders, Tetris, I guess, is kind of old, but
Kinda old. Tetris is fucking old.
yeah, Mario. But one guy that's sort of like the second tier of classic video games is Dig Dug.
Dig Dug. See, I hadn't played Dig Dug in maybe 5, 6, 7 years.
Oh, God, I hadn't played Dig Dug in forever.
But we got the Atari 7800 hooked up in the living room, and sadly enough, we've been playing the 7800 more than we've been playing any other electronic game we own by far.
Well, that changed when I started playing Resident Evil 4 a few days ago. But before that, we were playing Dig Dug all the time.
Now, because you haven't put as many hours into Resident Evil 4.
I put 10 hours into Resident Evil 4 so far.
Yeah, but we had the 7800 hooked up for a while.
We did, but I don't think I played Dig Dug for 10 hours.
You might have.
I don't know. I don't think so.
And all those other games we were playing.
I think we played it 10 times for 15 minutes.
Though you're kind of
each.
obsessing over Resident Evil 4. You won't let me use the living room, basically.
Why not? You can use the living room.
I can't play video games or use the TV.
Well, how
or
are you supposed to play video games while I'm playing video games?
Or sync my iPod or use my 50% share of that TV.
Well, first of all, you don't have a 50% share of that TV because most of that TV was paid for with my Sony points. Which
Whatever.
were like my money. And second of all, I first come, first serve. I'm playing video games. You can't stop me.
Yeah.
When I'm done playing video games, you can do whatever you want.
Except when you play Resident Evil 4, most of what you do is sit there and bitch about the game while you play.
Well-
and talk about how much you hate it and how stupid it is.
The bitching for Resident Evil 4 is relatively less than some other games because if the bitching was more, I would have put it down. And
You bitched
I
this-
would not have played for 10 hours.
Sitting in the room with you, you bitch the same amount that you've bitched for every single game you've played for as long as you've lived in this house.
No.
When you were playing Mega Man X, you bitched the exact same amount.
No, Mega Man X, it depends on which Mega Man X you're talking about.
No, I'm talking about the frequency of bitchings per unit time has remained constant. If you're playing a video game in the room, you will bitch about every 5 minutes about something in the game being stupid and why would they make it that way? It could have been better. This is stupid. Why do I have to do this? Why did they do it this way? This sucks. But you'll keep playing.
Yeah. Keep playing. Keep playing.
Press A. Press A.
Okay.
Yeah, but of all the games for the 7800, which includes the entire 2600 library, as well as the Atari equivalent of Tengen games,
No, God.
the ones we've been playing the most are Ms. Pac-Man, Dig Dug,
Dig Dug.
Ms. Pac-Man,
Super Breakout, Dig Dug.
Pong,
Well,
well,
not
no.
Pong. Video Olympics.
Video Olympics, which is pretty much every possible type of game that involves Pong controls.
Yep.
It's kind of amazing. It's got basketball, volleyball, hockey, soccer, tennis,
I think the volleyball is my favorite. Actually.
racquetball.
The foosball,
Oh, yeah, foosball.
soccer. So,
It's just Pong, and the paddles are in different places.
all right. So, Dig Dug.
Dig Dug is one of those amazing old pure video games. A word like pure a lot of times, pure, blah, 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 but games like this really are pure. Dig Dug is a game where you dig into the ground and there are 2 kinds of monsters, and you try to kill them in order to get as many points as you can, occasionally eating vegetables or Galaxian flagships.
Yep. So basically, Dig Dug can kill bad guys in 2 different ways. You can either dig directly under a rock. If you dig directly under a rock and then you move, the rock will fall down. If a bad guy happens to be there when the rock falls, he will get squished. If Dig Dug happens to be there when the rock falls, he will get squished.
You know his name's not Dig Dug, right?
What's his name?
I forget it now, but in Japan he was given a name. He's also known as the hero of the something incident.
His name is Dig Dug, and
His name is not Dig
Mr.
Dug.
Driller, which you'll see a lot of
Mr. Driller has a name also.
Yeah, but Mr. Driller is related to Dig Dug in a way. There are like references that bind the 2 games together. But anyway, the other way Dig Dug can beat bad guys is by pumping them up full of air with his air pump.
Yeah, he shoves a spike into their body with an air pump and pumps it up until they explode.
Like imagine a bicycle pump with a big rope and a hook, and he throws the hook into the bad guy, and then he pumps him up. And you pump them 4 times, and they explode.
Now, the monsters, there are 2 kinds of monsters, pukas and
Figars.
Figars.
Figars are awesome.
Yeah, pukas are just little red things that eat you.
They have goggles that do nothing.
Yeah, the other ones are dragons that can breathe fire horizontally and do so often.
Yeah, they both suck.
Now, the cool thing is that both of them can also turn into a ghost form. They call it something in Japan, something like ghostly eyes, I forget.
Yeah.
But they can kind of phase like an X-Man through the dirt very slowly and then pop out in your tunnels and try to eat
Yeah,
you.
you see, at the beginning of any round of Dig Dug, any level, Dig Dug himself will dig.
His name's not Dig Dug.
Whatever. He'll dig from the top of the map straight down the middle into the middle of the board. All the bad guys are in these little dugouts. It looks sort of like an ant farm thingy that you buy. And, the bad guys are in the little dugouts, and they're just going back and forth. But the bad guys can't dig in the dirt like Dig Dug can. So it's not easy for them to walk around on the dirt. So they turn into eyeballs and float across the dirt to get to other areas where they can walk and thus kill Dig Dug. Of course, turning into eyeballs, they move through dirt a lot slower than they walk around.
But you move through dirt a lot slower when you're digging than when you're running through a pre-dug tunnel.
Mm.
And, this is a pure old video game, so you have 2 goals. Survive, get points. And the way they do points is cool. You get more points if you kill a bad guy down under. You get more points if you kill a Figar from the side, because that way it's dangerous. He can flame you. You get more points if you crush guys with rocks instead of pumping them up.
You get a lot of points if you crush a bunch of guys with 1 rock.
As soon as you drop 2 boulders, no matter where they are or when, or whatever they hit something or not, a vegetable or Galaxian ship
or fruit
or pineapple will appear. And then you got to go grab it, and it's worth a whole ton of points.
You've got like 10 seconds to grab the vegetable. And, in the beginning of the game, what's the first vegetable? It's like some crappy-ass bean or
whatever.
something.
Eventually it turns into a Galaxian ship, and finally a pineapple.
Yeah, the pineapple, once you get to level 18, 19, 20, it's a pineapple, and it stays a pineapple forever. And a pineapple is worth some godly amount of points.
Now, by the way, Dig Dug, as Scott is calling him, his actual name is Taizo Hori.
Okay, what's his name in America?
And he is the father of Susumu Hori, who is the main character in Mr. Driller.
All right. And what's Dig Dug's name in English?
That is his name. That's his name.
Well,
They didn't translate or localize Dig Dug.
Okay.
The only part of that game they translated is press start. Players 1, 2, pineapple or teddy bear.
Yeah.
There's some puns in the name or something. Whatever. The continuity of the Dig Dug universe is a little convoluted, and it goes.
I can't believe there's a Dig Dug universe.
Not only, but there's some trouble here because it's not all consistent.
Oh, really?
And there are people.
How is it not consistent when the games contain no plot, and therefore you could just make up the plot?
I don't know.
They
Don't
could have
get
just
me
made up a
started.
consistent plot with no game to interfere.
Now, we've been playing this game a lot, and the conclusion is simply that I am infinitely better than Scott.
You're not infinitely better. I'm damn good at Dig Dug. I
Yeah.
just haven't been playing Dig Dug as much as you.
My whole life.
And I played a lot more Dig Dug 2 when I was a kid than I played Dig Dug 1.
I could beat you with Dig Dug 2 just as easily.
I don't think you beat me at Dig Dug 2.
I played a lot of Dig Dug 2 as well.
See, I actually had Dig Dug 2 for the NES, and I played it a lot. Now, Dig Dug 2 is a little different. You got the same Dig Dug, but he's got the same pump. You got the pukas and the Figars, right? But instead of digging under the earth, you're on an island. And the island has, like, cracks in it. And, there's these spikes. And he has a jackhammer instead of a digging tool, instead of an automatic shovel or whatever Dig Dug uses. And if he goes to one of the spikes and uses the jackhammer, he can put cracks in the island. Now, what happens if you put enough cracks in the island that break the island into different pieces, like completely separate pieces, the smaller piece will fall into the ocean. Like, do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
Ghostly eyes, that's what they're called. Anyway.
Okay. So if there happen to be pukas and Figars on the piece that falls into the ocean, awesome. If there aren't, that sucks. If Dig Dug is on the part that falls into the ocean, that sucks. So it's all about looking at the map and breaking up the island in a way that makes the bad guys fall off the edge. And if you get in trouble, you can always pump them up with the pump air thingy.
Now, I got to say, I have a very special, tender place in my heart for all of these old or even new, just pure video games. Games that have a very simple, very direct concept, and they implement it as well as they can. And the only factor here is how good are you at this specific pure game.
Yeah.
It is a direct contest of digging and dugging.
The best thing about these games is that there's so many nuances that aren't immediately obvious that you get to learn over time. You know, to the untrained eye, you look at this game and you say, what the hell is that shit? There's nothing to this game.
Yeah, sit down with someone who knows what they're doing and watch them play on a difficult level, and you'll see a situation where there's like 8 monsters going after you, and you're in the corner, and you think, this guy's going to die. There's no way he can survive this. And he'll do some kind of kung fu, like he'll make a little path, go around back, stun a bunch of guys, run away, catch a rock, kill them all, grab the mushroom, and win.
Yeah, it's like you see people playing games like Soul Calibur, and they pull off some awesome combo, and you go, whoa! And you don't think that kind of thing is possible in some simple game like Dig Dug? Well, it's very possible in a game like Dig Dug. We pull off awesome moves all the time. You know, like, you'll be standing there with guys coming at you from all the directions. You do some daring digging, and you'll like pump up some guys a little bit, but not enough so that they die, to keep them there, to delay them just a little bit, that the rock hits them instead of them running away from the rock.
Of course, my favorite thing that you did was in one game, in level 1, you walked to the right and were immediately killed.
What? Yeah, well, it's going to happen sometimes.
No, that's like dying on the first Goomba.
Yeah, you know what? If I play Mario 1 100 times, maybe 1,000 times, 1 out of 1,000 times, I might hit that first Goomba.
Well, I got to make fun of you because, according to the listeners, I'm really too hard on you, so I got to keep up this persona.
You've also died in level 1 of Dig Dug.
You know what, though? When I died in level 1, I already had like 2,000 points. You had 10. 10.
Yeah, what do you want?
More
See, that's the
than
other
10.
thing is, like, a bunch of levels in Dig Dug I've done perfectly, but I don't remember it's a deterministic game, so if you do the exact same input every time, in other games it's not easy to do the exact same input because the games are so complex.
In Dig Dug it is. There are so a lot of the levels I'll play in the exact same way every time. I'll, like, wait 2 seconds, walk to the right, open into the monster's pit, stun him once, walk down, walk right, wait 2 more seconds, go across the rock, and kill 3 guys.
Yeah, you can't do that sort of thing in, I don't know, Mario 64.
No, but like Mario 1, you can.
Mario 1,
Mario
you definitely
2, you can.
Yep.
Mario 3, you can too.
Mostly. It's not. It won't be 100% the same as the last time you played it. But in Dig Dug, you can play 100% the same every time, and it'd be pretty cool. Now, I just want to point out that I downloaded I got MAME, to play the original arcade version of Dig Dug.
Yeah, we've been playing
the real Dig Dug.
We've been playing the 7800 version, which actually is a very good port.
It's a very close to the original version. The NES version, however, is basically I'd say the arcade version, of course, is 100% identical to what Dig Dug is supposed to be.
Well, it's 100% identical to itself.
Exactly.
That's your argument.
Yes. The Atari 7800 version is about 90% identical to the arcade version.
And
it's a little bit slower. It's a little bit easier. There's less resolution. The bad guys are a little bit dumber, even though I think they have the same AI. Some of the pictures of the flowers are different, stuff like that. The NES version is 99.999% similar to the arcade version. So if you're going to play this game by some emulation or something, it's probably easiest to get the NES version. It's probably the nicest version to play.
Well, especially MAME is a little bit difficult sometimes for people who don't want to spend time fiddling with it to get to work fully.
Yeah, MAME is the easiest emulator to make work.
Because you're emulating all this different hardware. It's not like an NES emulator where you're emulating the NES and maybe some MMCs, and that's it.
Yeah. MAME isn't difficult just on its own. It's just more difficult than something like ZSNES or what are those, Rock NES or any of those other NES emulators, which are very, very, very easy to use.
And we talked about Dig Dug today mostly because we were going to review Resident Evil 4, but Scott wouldn't put down the GameCube controller long enough for me to actually play the game.
Well, I found I'm almost done with the game, actually. I've only got like 8 chapters to go, so
yeah,
I should beat it pretty soon.
We missed the window because the Wii's going to come out, and then we're not going to have a chance for me to play Resident Evil 4 for at least another 3 or 4 years.
What? You'll play it.
No, because look, all these
play it on the Wii.
all these DS and Wii games are going to be coming out at a pretty steady rate for a while, and I already have a backlog of DS games to play, let alone my other backlogs. And we're playing D&D again. So I don't think I'm going to get to Resident Evil 4 for a long time. I'll be playing the Resident Evils on, like, the DS 360 5 years from now.
No, I'm going to play this Saturday, because I'm going to get the Wii on Sunday. So this Saturday, if I don't beat Resident Evil 4 this Saturday, I don't think I'm ever going to beat it.
Nah, maybe when you're an old man.
Maybe when I'm an old man, I'll go back and there'll be a box set, or there'll be all of Resident Evil on a single hollow foil, and I'll play all 10 Resident Evil games on the single hollow foil.
Honestly, I don't like any other Resident Evil games.
Yeah, well, I'll talk about it, but that'll save it for the Resident Evil episode.
Yeah, in a few years, we'll talk about Resident Evil.
Yeah.
This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geek Nights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.